Hello friends. Welcome to Luxury Stories, the ultimate destination for lovers of high-end experiences, opulent lifestyles, and untold tales of extravagance. Your support means the world to us. Please do well to hit that subscription button and turn on the notification bell to get notified on our subsequent stories. Don't forget to like and share with friends. Now, relax and enjoy the story. The rain fell in heavy sheets over Silverton's Willow Heights district, a prestigious enclave where mansions stood like silent sentinels, their glass facades reflecting the storm's fury. It was a chilly morning in the Westbridge Republic, the kind that made the air feel heavy and the world seem smaller, cloaked in gray. The streets, lined with manicured hedges and towering palms, glistened under the downpour, their usual elegance subdued by the relentless weather. At the edge of one such estate, a wrought iron gate loomed, its intricate design both welcoming and forbidding. Beyond it lay the sprawling mansion of Jonathan Blake, a tech billionaire whose name was synonymous with innovation in this modern African nation. Margaret Blake, a 65-year-old woman with silver-streaked hair and a gentle face etched with years of resilience, stood at the gate. Her small frame was hunched against the rain, her thin shawl clinging to her shoulders, soaked through from her long journey. She had traveled 500 miles from Cloverfield, a quiet rural town where she'd raised Jonathan single-handedly, scraping by on a teacher's salary. In her trembling hands, she clutched a handmade quilt, its vibrant patches of red, blue, and gold carefully stitched over months as a gift for her son. The quilt was wrapped in plastic to protect it from the rain, but Margaret herself had no such shield. Her worn sneakers squelched in the puddles forming at her feet, and her glasses fogged with mist. Margaret pressed the intercom button on the gate's sleek control panel, her fingers stiff from the cold. "Hello? Is anyone there?" she called, her voice soft but steady, carrying the warmth of a mother who'd faced countless hardships without breaking. She waited, glancing up at the security camera perched above the gate, its red light blinking like an unblinking eye. She smiled faintly, imagining Jonathan's surprise when he saw her. She hadn't told him she was coming. Her son was always so busy, jetting between meetings and managing his tech empire. This visit, she thought, would be a chance to reconnect, to remind him of the simpler days they'd shared in Cloverfield. Inside the mansion, Evelyn Stone reclined on a plush velvet sofa in the living room, her manicured nails tapping idly on her phone. The room was a study in opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over marble floors, and floor-to-ceiling windows framed the stormy world outside. Evelyn, 28, was a vision of calculated glamour, her sleek black hair cascading over a silk robe, her makeup flawless despite the early hour. A former model who'd clawed her way into Jonathan's life, she relished the perks of dating a billionaire, the private jets, the designer clothes, the envy of Silverton's elite. But beneath her polished exterior simmered a selfishness that bordered on cruelty. The intercom buzzed, pulling Evelyn from her scrolling. She frowned, setting her phone down and gliding to the security console mounted on the wall. The screen flickered to life, revealing Margaret standing at the gate, her frail figure dwarfed by the iron bars. Evelyn's lips curled in annoyance. "Who's this old woman?" she muttered, squinting at the screen. Margaret's modest clothes and weathered appearance screamed outsider to Evelyn, who had little patience for anything that disrupted her carefully curated world. Margaret pressed the intercom again. "Hello? This is Margaret Blake, Jonathan's mother. I've come to see him. Could you let me in, please?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Jonathan's mother? She hadn't been warned about any visitors, and certainly not some bedraggled woman showing up unannounced. Evelyn leaned toward the intercom, her voice sharp and clipped. "Jonathan's not here. You should have called first. Wait there." She released the button abruptly, not bothering to hear Margaret's response. Margaret's face fell, but she nodded to herself, assuming there was some misunderstanding. "All right, dear, I'll wait," she said softly, though the intercom was silent. She stepped back, clutching the quilt tighter, and lowered herself onto the wet pavement, her knees creaking. The rain pelted her, soaking her shawl and chilling her to the bone. She shivered but stayed put, her faith in her son unwavering. "He'll be home soon," she whispered, tucking the quilt under her arm to keep it dry. "He'll be so happy to see me." Back inside, Evelyn returned to the sofa, her annoyance simmering. Who does she think she is, showing up like that? She muttered, picking up her phone. She glanced at the security screen again, seeing Margaret sitting on the ground, and scoffed. She can wait out there. I'm not opening the gate for some stranger. Evelyn activated the gate's remote lock, ensuring it stayed shut, then resumed scrolling, oblivious to the elderly woman's plight. To her, Margaret was an inconvenience, a disruption to her morning of luxury. The rain grew heavier, drumming against the mansion's windows. Margaret's teeth chattered as she sat, her thin frame trembling. She thought of Jonathan as a boy, running through Cloverfield's fields, his laughter filling her heart. The memory warmed her slightly, but the cold was relentless. She hugged the quilt, its plastic cover crinkling, and murmured, "Just a little longer, Maggie. He'll come." Her voice was barely audible over the storm, but her resolve held firm, a testament to the strength that had carried her through years of struggle. The scene was a stark contrast. Inside, Evelyn lounged in warmth and excess, indifferent to the world beyond her bubble. Outside, Margaret endured the storm, her love for her son anchoring her to the spot. The injustice of her situation, the frail mother left to suffer by a heartless girlfriend, set the stage for a story that would soon grip Silverton, a tale of cruelty and consequence that would resonate far beyond the rain-soaked gate. By midday, the rain had intensified, turning Willow Heights into a shimmering maze of water and light. Jonathan Blake's sleek black sedan glided through the storm, its headlights cutting through the downpour. Inside, Jonathan, 32, sat in the back, his sharp features softened by exhaustion. His tailored suit was slightly rumpled from a morning of high-stakes meetings, but his dark eyes were alert, scanning emails on his tablet. As the founder of Blake Tech, a company revolutionizing Westbridge's digital infrastructure, he was used to long days, but today felt heavier. He missed the simplicity of his childhood, the quiet evenings with his mother in Cloverfield. Little did he know, she was closer than he imagined. The car slowed as it approached the estate's gate, the driver navigating carefully through the flooded street. Jonathan glanced up, expecting the gate to swing open automatically. Instead, his eyes caught a figure slumped on the pavement, barely visible through the rain. His heart lurched. "Stop the car," he barked, his voice sharp with alarm. The driver slammed on the brakes, and Jonathan was out the door before the vehicle fully stopped, his polished shoes splashing through puddles. "Mom," he called, his voice cracking as he recognized the familiar shape of Margaret Blake. She looked small and fragile, her soaked shawl clinging to her trembling shoulders, the quilt clutched tightly in her lap. Rain streamed down her face, mingling with the fog on her glasses. Jonathan's chest tightened with horror and guilt. "Mom, what are you doing out here?" He knelt beside her, heedless of the mud staining his suit, and wrapped his coat around her shivering frame. Margaret's eyes lit up at the sight of him, though her lips were pale from the cold. "Jonathan, oh my boy," she said, her voice weak but warm. "I wanted to surprise you. I brought you something." She gestured to the quilt, her hands shaking as she tried to lift it. Jonathan's mind raced, confusion giving way to dread. "Why are you out here? Why didn't you come inside?" He helped her to her feet, supporting her frail weight as they moved toward the gate. He punched in the code, his fingers fumbling in his haste, and the gate creaked open. "Come on, let's get you warm." Inside the mansion, Jonathan guided Margaret to the living room, his arm around her protectively. The warmth of the house was a stark contrast to the storm outside, but Margaret's shivers persisted. He grabbed a thick blanket from a nearby chair and draped it over her, his hands gentle but urgent. "Mom, what happened? Why were you out there in the rain?" Margaret hesitated, her eyes dropping to the quilt now resting on her lap. She didn't want to cause trouble, but the truth spilled out softly. "I rang the intercom, dear. The young lady inside, Evelyn, I think, said you weren't home and told me to wait. Then the gate locked, and, well, I didn't want to leave. I thought you'd be back soon." Her voice wavered, not with anger but with the quiet pain of rejection. Jonathan's face darkened, his jaw tightening. "Evelyn did this." His tone was low, dangerous, a storm brewing in his chest to match the one outside. He kissed Margaret's forehead, his voice softening. "Stay here, Mom. I'll take care of this." He stood, his eyes blazing with a fury he rarely let show. He strode through the mansion, his footsteps echoing on the marble floors, until he reached the master bedroom. The room was a sanctuary of luxury, with a king-sized bed draped in silk sheets, and floor-to-ceiling windows framing the rain-lashed gardens. Evelyn lay sprawled across the bed, napping, her silk robe slipping off one shoulder, her phone resting on her stomach. The sight of her so carefree, while his mother had suffered, ignited something primal in Jonathan. He grabbed a glass of water from the bedside table, his grip tight enough to make the glass creak. Without a word, he tilted it over Evelyn's face, letting the cold water splash across her. She gasped, jolting awake, her eyes wide with shock. "What the hell, Jonathan?" she shrieked, scrambling to sit up, her hair dripping. "Get up," he said, his voice cold as the rain outside. "We need to talk. Now." Evelyn wiped her face, her expression shifting from shock to indignation. "What's your problem?" "I was sleeping." "My problem?" Jonathan's voice rose, sharp and cutting. "My mother was locked outside in the rain, Evelyn. Shivering, soaked, sitting on the ground like she's nothing. You did that." "What?" Evelyn's mouth opened, then closed, her usual quick wit faltering under his glare. I didn't know it was her," she stammered, pushing wet hair from her face. "She just showed up, no warning. I thought she was some random person. I told her to wait." "You told her to wait in a storm?" Jonathan's voice was incredulous, his hands clenched at his sides. "She's my mother, Evelyn. My mother. And you left her out there like trash." He pointed toward the living room, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You're going to explain yourself. Let's go." Evelyn's eyes darted nervously, but she followed him, her robe trailing behind her like a defeated banner. The confrontation was raw, electric, a moment of reckoning that would ripple through their lives and beyond, setting the stage for a scandal that would captivate Silverton. The image of Jonathan pouring water on Evelyn, a mirror to the rain that had soaked his mother, was a dramatic spark, a gasp-worthy act that would linger in the minds of anyone who heard the story. The rain battered the floor-to-ceiling windows of Jonathan Blake's mansion in Silverton's Willow Heights district, each drop a drumbeat amplifying the tension within. The living room, a masterpiece of opulence, gleamed under the soft glow of a crystal chandelier. Marble floors reflected the flickering light, and plush cream-colored sofas sat arranged around a sleek glass coffee table. Outside, the storm raged, a fitting backdrop to the storm brewing inside. Jonathan strode into the room, his face a mask of barely contained fury, his wet shoes leaving faint prints on the polished floor. Behind him, Evelyn Stone trailed reluctantly, her silk robe clinging to her frame, still damp from the water Jonathan had poured on her to jolt her awake. Her usual confidence was frayed, her eyes darting as she sensed the gravity of the moment. Margaret Blake sat on one of the sofas, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, her silver hair still damp, but her shivering eased by the room's warmth. Her hands, weathered from years of hard work in Cloverfield, rested on the handmade quilt she'd brought for her son, its vibrant patches a stark contrast to the room's sterile elegance. Her eyes, though tired, carried a quiet strength, and as she watched Evelyn enter, her gaze held a piercing disappointment that needed no words. Jonathan stopped in the center of the room, turning to face Evelyn. His voice was low, controlled, but laced with rage. "Explain yourself, Evelyn. Why was my mother locked outside in the rain? Why was she sitting on the ground, soaking wet, while you were napping in my bed?" Evelyn's lips parted, but no sound came at first. She smoothed her robe, trying to regain her composure, her manicured nails catching the light. "Jonathan, I didn't mean any harm," she said, her voice high and defensive. "I saw her on the security camera, and I didn't know who she was. I thought she might be, I don't know, a trespasser or something. I told her to wait because you weren't home. It's not my fault she stayed out there." Jonathan's eyes narrowed, his hands clenching into fists. "A trespasser? My mother? You saw her on the camera, Evelyn. An elderly woman with a quilt, standing in a storm, and you thought she was a threat." His voice rose, cutting through the room like a blade. "You locked the gate on her. You left her out there to freeze." Margaret shifted slightly, her blanket rustling, but she remained silent, her eyes fixed on Evelyn. The weight of her gaze seemed to unnerve Evelyn more than Jonathan's anger. Evelyn's cheeks flushed, and she crossed her arms, her tone growing sharper. "Look, I was just being careful. This is a big house, Jonathan. You're a billionaire. People try to take advantage of you all the time. I was protecting you. Protecting me? Jonathan's laugh was bitter, devoid of humor. He took a step closer, towering over her. You left my mother, who raised me, who gave up everything for me, sitting in the rain like she was nothing. Don't you dare call that protection. Evelyn's eyes flicked to Margaret, searching for an ally, but Margaret's expression remained unyielding, her silence louder than any accusation. Evelyn swallowed, her confidence crumbling. I didn't know it was her, okay? I made a mistake. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Can we just move on? Jonathan shook his head, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. A mistake? You saw her on the screen, heard her voice, and chose to lock her out. That's not a mistake. That's cruelty. He pointed toward the windows, where the rain pounded relentlessly. You don't get to stay here after that. Get your things and leave. Now. Evelyn's eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. Leave? Jonathan, it's pouring outside. You can't be serious. She stepped toward him, her voice softening, pleading. I said I'm sorry. I'll apologize to her, okay? Let's talk about this. Jonathan's jaw tightened, his resolve unshaken. You'll apologize? He glanced at Margaret, whose eyes were now fixed on the quilt, as if shielding herself from the ugliness of the moment. You think words fix what you did? You humiliated her. You don't get to stay in this house another minute. Evelyn's desperation grew, her voice rising to a whine. Jonathan, please. I've been with you for a year. I love you. You can't throw me out like this. She reached for his arm, but he stepped back, his expression cold. Love? He said, his voice dripping with disbelief. You don't know what love is. Get out. Walk. Feel what she felt. He pointed to the door, his tone final. Evelyn's face crumpled, a mix of anger and fear. She opened her mouth to argue, but the weight of Jonathan's glare silenced her. She turned, her robe swishing dramatically, and stormed toward the foyer, muttering under her breath. Fine. You'll regret this, Jonathan. The front door slammed behind her, the sound swallowed by the storm's roar. Jonathan turned to Margaret, his anger softening into guilt. He knelt beside her, taking her cold hands in his. Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she'd do something like this. Are you okay? Margaret squeezed his hands, her smile faint but warm. I'm all right now, my boy. I just wanted to see you. Her voice was soft, forgiving, but the hurt in her eyes lingered, a silent testament to the ordeal she'd endured. The scene was electric with raw emotion, Jonathan's righteous anger, Evelyn's feeble excuses, and Margaret's quiet dignity. The poetic justice of Evelyn's expulsion into the rain, mirroring Margaret's suffering, was a moment of reckoning, charged with the kind of drama that would leave an audience breathless, eager to share the story of a billionaire's stand for his mother. Twilight settled over Silverton, the rain unrelenting, transforming the city's streets into rivers of shimmering light. The upscale Willow Heights district gave way to grittier neighborhoods as Evelyn Stone trudged through the downpour, her silk robe, now a sodden weight, clinging to her skin. Her designer heels, useless against the flooded sidewalks, slipped with every step, forcing her to grip a lamppost for balance. Her hair, once meticulously styled, hung in wet strands across her face, mascara streaking her cheeks. The miles to her modest apartment in Silverton's less glamorous East Side district stretched ahead, each step a reminder of her humiliation. Evelyn's mind churned as she walked, flashes of her past cutting through her anger. She remembered her small hometown, a dusty place far from Silverton's gleam, where she'd grown up dreaming of wealth. As a teenager, she'd charmed her way into modeling gigs, learning early how to manipulate those around her. A flashback showed her at 22, schmoozing at a Silverton gala, her eyes locking onto Jonathan Blake, then an up-and-coming tech mogul. She'd orchestrated their meeting, playing the role of a sweet, ambitious woman to win his heart and his lifestyle. Every smile, every touch, had been calculated, her obsession with status driving her to secure a place in his world. Now, that world was crumbling. How dare he, she muttered, her voice lost in the rain's patter. Throwing me out like I'm nothing. She slipped again, catching herself on a fence, and cursed under her breath. The cold seeped into her bones, a cruel echo of Margaret's ordeal at the gate. Passers-by, huddled under umbrellas, cast curious glances, but none offered help. Evelyn, once the envy of Silverton's elite, was now a drenched, solitary figure, her fall from grace as public as it was humiliating. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere was softer, warmer, despite the storm outside. Jonathan sat beside Margaret on the living room sofa, a mug of hot tea in her hands. The quilt lay across her lap, its patches glowing under the chandelier's light. Jonathan had changed into a dry sweater, his earlier rage replaced by a quiet determination to make things right. "Mom, you should have told me you were coming," he said gently, though his voice carried a trace of guilt. "I would have made sure you were welcomed." Margaret sipped her tea, her hands steadier now. "I wanted it to be a surprise, Jonathan. I haven't seen you in so long. I thought it'd be like old times." Her eyes softened, a smile tugging at her lips. "Remember when you were little, and we'd sit on the porch in Cloverfield, listening to the rain? You'd tell me you'd build me a big house one day." Jonathan chuckled, the memory easing the tension in his chest. "I did say that, didn't I? Guess I kept that promise." He gestured to the lavish room, but his smile faded. "I just didn't expect this." Evelyn was out of line. "I'm so sorry, Mom." Margaret reached out, patting his hand. "You don't need to apologize for her, my boy. You've got a good heart. Always have." She paused, her voice dropping. "But that girl, she's not right for you. I saw it in her eyes. No kindness there." Jonathan nodded, his jaw tight. "I know. I was blind to it for too long." He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "Tell me more about Cloverfield. How's the old house holding up?" Margaret's face lit up, and she launched into a story about the town's annual fair, her voice warm with nostalgia. "Mrs. Carter still makes those terrible pies, but everyone buys them out of pity," she said, laughing softly. "And the kids still climb that old oak by the school, just like you used to." Jonathan listened, his heart anchoring to the simplicity of her words. The contrast between Evelyn's cold ambition and Margaret's genuine love was stark, grounding him in a way he hadn't felt in years. Outside, the rain continued, but inside, the warmth of their bond began to heal the wounds of the day. Meanwhile, Evelyn reached her apartment, a cramped unit in a gray building far from Willow Heights' grandeur. She fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking from cold and rage. Inside, she collapsed onto a worn couch, the reality of her situation sinking in. "This isn't over," she whispered, her eyes glinting with defiance. But for now, she was alone, her dreams of wealth and status washed away by the rain. The juxtaposition of Evelyn's humiliating walk and the tender mother-son moments in the mansion was a powerful contrast, designed to tug at heartstrings and fuel schadenfreude. Evelyn's downfall, paired with the heartwarming reconnection between Jonathan and Margaret, created a narrative that would resonate deeply, its emotional weight and poetic justice perfect for a story destined to go viral. The morning after the storm, Silverton's Willow Heights district woke to a softer light, the rain replaced by a misty haze that clung to the manicured lawns and sleek mansions. Lillian Gray's home, a modern masterpiece of glass and steel, just 2 estates down from Jonathan Blake's, buzzed with a different kind of energy. Lillian, a 50-year-old gossip columnist with a penchant for drama and a readership that spanned the Westbridge Republic, sat at her mahogany desk, her fingers poised over a laptop. Her mansion study was a shrine to her craft, shelves lined with awards, walls adorned with framed articles, and a window offering a prime view of the neighborhood's comings and goings. Lillian had seen it all the previous evening. Margaret Blake, frail and soaked, arriving at Jonathan's gate. Evelyn Stone's dramatic exit, drenched and furious, storming off into the rain. Her sharp eyes missed nothing, and her instincts told her this was no ordinary spat. As she sipped her coffee, her phone buzzed with messages from neighbors, already whispering about the billionaire scandal. Lillian smirked, her mind racing. This was the kind of story that could dominate Silverton's headlines. She opened her laptop and began typing, her words sharp and deliberate. The headline materialized almost instantly. Billionaire's girlfriend drowns in her own cruelty. The article painted a vivid picture. Margaret, a saintly mother from the rural town of Cloverfield, arriving with a handmade quilt to surprise her son, only to be locked out in a storm by Evelyn, the heartless girlfriend obsessed with wealth. Lillian didn't hold back, describing Evelyn's callous indifference and Margaret's quiet dignity, with flair, crafting a narrative that cast Evelyn as the villain and Margaret as the wronged heroine. She wove in details of Jonathan's fury, gleaned from a neighbor's account of raised voices echoing from the mansion. Mrs. Blake, a woman who raised a billionaire with nothing but love and grit, deserved better than to shiver at her son's gate. Lillian typed, her words dripping with indignation. Evelyn Stone, it seems, believed her status as Jonathan Blake's girlfriend gave her the right to treat his mother like refuse. Silverton, take note. Cruelty has no place in our city. Lillian paused, glancing out her window toward Jonathan's estate. She'd always found Evelyn insufferable, her arrogance grating at neighborhood events. This article wasn't just news, it was personal. She hit publish, and within minutes, the story spread across Silverton's news feeds, shared by readers on their phones and laptops. By noon, it was viral. The headline splashed across every major outlet in the city. Comments poured in, readers outraged at Evelyn's actions. How could she do that to an old lady? One wrote. Jonathan's better off without her, said another. In her modest East Side apartment, Evelyn woke to a flood of notifications. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, each alert a dagger to her pride. She opened Lillian's article, her face paling as she read. This is lies, she hissed, slamming her phone onto the coffee table. She called an old modeling friend, hoping for sympathy, but the response was cold. Evelyn, everyone's talking about it, her friend said, her voice distant. You locked out his mom? That's low, even for you. Evelyn's heart sank as more calls went unanswered. Old acquaintances, eager to distance themselves, began sharing stories of her past, how she'd manipulated clients, lied to climb social ladders, and bragged about securing Jonathan. Her reputation, already fragile, crumbled under the weight of the article's reach. Lillian Gray, Evelyn muttered, her voice venomous. You'll pay for this. Back in Willow Heights, Lillian leaned back in her chair, watching the article's view count soar. She picked up her phone and called a contact at a local news channel. I've got more dirt on Evelyn Stone, she said, her voice smooth. This story's just getting started. The scandal was now a citywide fire, its flames fanned by Lillian's words, each share amplifying the drama and ensuring Evelyn's downfall became the talk of Silverton. At Blake Tech's headquarters, a sleek glass tower in Silverton's bustling business district, the mood was far from the city's gossip frenzy. The building's minimalist design, white walls, polished steel, and floor-to-ceiling windows, reflected Jonathan Blake's vision of innovation. Inside his corner office, Clara Holt, his 30-year-old assistant, sat at a glass desk, her fingers flying across a tablet. Clara was sharp, efficient, and fiercely loyal, her understated beauty often overlooked amid her no-nonsense demeanor. But today, her brow was furrowed, her eyes narrowed at the screen. Clara had always been wary of Evelyn, sensing her ambition masked a deeper selfishness. After the previous night's events, relayed to her by Jonathan in a tense early morning call, Clara's instincts kicked into overdrive. She'd spend hours digging through financial records, a task she often handled for Jonathan's sprawling empire. What she found made her stomach churn: irregularities in one of Jonathan's personal accounts, linked to transactions Evelyn had access to through her role as his trusted partner at the mansion. Clara cross-referenced timestamps and security logs, her heart racing as the pieces fell into place. Evelyn had been siphoning small, nearly untraceable amounts from Jonathan's accounts, funneling them into an offshore account under a shell company. The sums were modest enough to avoid immediate suspicion, but added up to thousands over months. Clara's hands shook as she compiled the evidence: screenshots, bank statements, and a log of Evelyn's access to the mansion's secure systems. She stood, smoothing her blazer, and knocked on Jonathan's office door. "Jonathan, you need to see this," she said, her voice steady but urgent. Jonathan, still reeling from the night before, looked up from his desk, his eyes tired but alert. "Clara, what's wrong?" he asked, gesturing for her to sit. Clara placed the tablet in front of him, swiping to a spreadsheet. "I was checking your personal accounts, like you asked. There's money missing, small amounts, but consistent. It's been going on for months." She tapped the screen, pulling up a transaction log. Evelyn had access to these accounts through the mansion's system. "I traced the transfers to an offshore account. It's her, Jonathan. She's been stealing from you." Jonathan's face hardened, his jaw clenching as he scrolled through the evidence. "Stealing," he said, his voice low, disbelieving. "She locked my mother out in the rain, and now this?" He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "How did I not see it? How did I let her get this close?" Clara's expression softened, but she kept her tone professional. "She was good at hiding it, Jonathan. But the evidence is clear. She used her access to the mansion's systems to cover her tracks. I've locked her out of everything, but we need to act fast to secure the accounts." Jonathan nodded, his eyes blazing with resolve. "Thank you, Clara. I don't know what I'd do without you." He stood, pacing to the window, the city skyline stretching before him. "This isn't just about the money. It's about betrayal. My family, my company." She thought she could take it all and walk away. Clara hesitated, then spoke softly. "What do you want to do next?" Jonathan turned, his voice firm. "We freeze the accounts, get legal involved, and we make sure she never gets near my family or my business again." He paused, his gaze softening as he looked at Clara. "You've always had my back, haven't you?" Clara's cheeks flushed slightly, but she met his eyes. "Always, Jonathan. It's my job." Her words were simple, but the weight behind them hinted at her unspoken loyalty, a thread that would weave through the story's later chapters. Jonathan sat back down, his mind racing. "Let's get this to the lawyers today. And Clara, don't let anyone else know yet. This stays between us until we're ready." Clara nodded, gathering her tablet. "I'll handle it. You focus on your mom. She needs you now." She left the office, her steps brisk, but her heart heavy with the weight of what she'd uncovered. The discovery of Evelyn's financial betrayal added a layer of intrigue to the unfolding drama, a twist that deepened the stakes beyond the emotional cruelty at the gate. It was a revelation that would keep audiences hooked, eager to see how Jonathan would protect his empire and his mother from Evelyn's schemes. The combination of Lillian's viral article and Clara's bombshell evidence ensured the story's grip on Silverton, each moment crafted to captivate and spread like wildfire. The dim glow of pendant lights cast shadows across the upscale Silverton Cafe, a chic spot in the city's trendy downtown district where influencers and elites sipped overpriced lattes. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets outside slick and reflective, but inside, the air was thick with tension. Evelyn Stone sat at a corner table, her posture rigid, her eyes darting nervously. Gone was the polished glamour of her days at Jonathan Blake's mansion. Her makeup was minimal, her hair pulled into a tight bun, and her simple black dress betrayed her attempt to appear understated. Across from her sat Marcus Tate, a shady journalist known for sensational stories and questionable ethics. His cheap suit and sly grin contrasted with the cafe's sleek decor, but his reputation for twisting narratives made him Evelyn's last hope. Evelyn leaned forward, her voice low and urgent. "You've got to help me, Marcus. That article Lillian Gray wrote is ruining me. Everyone in Silverton thinks I'm a monster. I need you to tell my side of the story." Marcus raised an eyebrow, swirling his coffee. "Your side, huh? Locking an old lady out in the rain doesn't exactly scream victim, Evelyn." He smirked, leaning back. "But I'm listening. What's the angle?" Evelyn's jaw tightened, but she forced a smile, her old modeling charm flickering. "Jonathan Blake isn't the saint everyone thinks. He's controlling, aggressive. He abused me." Her voice wavered, calculated to sound vulnerable. "I was scared to say anything before, but after he threw me out, I can't stay silent." "You write that, Marcus, and people will eat it up." Marcus's eyes gleamed with interest. "Abuse? That's juicy. Got any proof?" He pulled out a notepad, his pen poised. Evelyn hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of her napkin. "I don't have photos or anything, but I can describe it. Late nights, him yelling, grabbing my arm too hard. Say I was trapped in that mansion, afraid to leave." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Make it convincing, Marcus. I'll pay you well." Marcus chuckled, jotting notes. "You're preaching to the choir, sweetheart. A billionaire bully story? That'll sell. I'll need $5,000 up front, and I'll have it online by tomorrow." He slid his phone across the table, showing a draft headline. "Billionaire's Dark Side. Evelyn Stone's Escape from Abuse." Evelyn nodded, her stomach churning but her resolve firm. "Do it. Make sure it spreads fast." She transferred the money via her phone, her hands shaking slightly. As Marcus pocketed his phone and left, Evelyn stared out the window, her reflection pale in the glass. "You'll see, Jonathan," she muttered. "I'm not done yet." By morning, Marcus's article hit Silverton's news feeds, its lurid claims sparking a firestorm. Readers, already hooked on Lillian's scoop, devoured the new narrative, some questioning Jonathan's character. Social chatter buzzed with speculation, the city divided between those who believed Evelyn's tale and those loyal to the Blake family. Across town, at Victor Reed's penthouse, Jonathan's best friend and business partner scrolled through the article, his brow furrowing. Victor, 35, was a grounded contrast to Jonathan's intensity, his calm demeanor masking a sharp mind. He smelled a rat. "This doesn't add up," he muttered, grabbing his phone to call Clara Holt, Jonathan's assistant. "Clara, you seen this garbage about Jonathan? Evelyn's claiming he abused her." Clara, at her desk in Blake Tech's headquarters, pulled up the article, her lips pressing into a thin line. "She's lying, Victor. I've been with Jonathan for years. He's never raised a hand to anyone." Her voice was firm, but worry crept in. This could hurt him, especially after Lillian's article. People love a scandal. Victor nodded, his mind racing. "Exactly. She's trying to flip the script. I bet this journalist's dirty. Can you dig into him? I'll talk to Jonathan." Clara's fingers were already flying across her tablet. "I'm on it. I'll check Marcus Tate's financials and contacts. If he's tied to Evelyn, I'll find it." She paused, her voice softening. "Victor, we need to shut this down fast. Jonathan's got enough on his plate with his mom." "Agreed," Victor said. "I'll meet you at the office in an hour. Let's nail her." They hung up, their partnership a quiet force, their determination to protect Jonathan fueling their plan. Clara traced Marcus's bank records, finding a recent payment from Evelyn's account, while Victor prepared to alert Jonathan. Evelyn's counterattack was bold, but it was a desperate gamble, and the suspense of her impending exposure hung heavy, a hook that would keep Silverton's eyes glued to the unfolding drama. The press conference room at Blake Tech's headquarters was a sleek, modern space, its glass walls framing Silverton's skyline under a cloudy afternoon sky. Rows of chairs faced a podium, where cameras and microphones from every major outlet in the Westbridge Republic waited, their lenses trained on Jonathan Blake. The room buzzed with anticipation, reporters whispering about Evelyn's abuse allegations and Lillian's viral article. Jonathan stood at the podium, his suit crisp, his expression resolute but weary. Flanking him were Clara Holt, her tablet clutched tightly, and Victor Reed, his arms crossed, his gaze scanning the crowd. The stakes were high, and the air crackled with the promise of a reckoning. Jonathan cleared his throat, his voice steady as he addressed the room. "Thank you for coming. I'm here to set the record straight about the lies spread by Evelyn Stone." He paused, letting the words sink in. "She claimed I abused her, but the truth is far uglier. She betrayed me, my family, and everything I stand for." He nodded to Clara, who stepped forward, connecting her tablet to a projector. A grainy security video played on the screen behind them, showing Evelyn at the mansion's security console, her face cold as she locked the gate on Margaret Blake. The room gasped as the footage shifted to Margaret, shivering in the rain, clutching her quilt. "This," Jonathan said, his voice tight with emotion, "is what Evelyn did to my mother, who came 500 miles to surprise me. She left her out in a storm, like she was nothing." The reporters murmured, scribbling notes. Jonathan continued, his tone hardening. "But it didn't stop there. My assistant, Clara Holt, uncovered evidence of Evelyn's financial schemes." Clara swiped her tablet, displaying bank records and transaction logs. "She was stealing from my accounts, siphoning money through a shell company. And her latest move? Paying a journalist to spread lies about me." Victor stepped up, his voice calm but firm. "We traced a payment from Evelyn to Marcus Tate, the man who wrote those false abuse claims. He's got a history of selling stories for cash. This was a setup to smear Jonathan and save her own skin." The room erupted in questions, but Jonathan raised a hand. "There's someone else you need to hear from." He turned to the side, where Margaret Blake stepped forward, her simple dress and gentle demeanor a stark contrast to the room's intensity. She held the quilt, its colors vibrant under the lights. Margaret's voice was soft but clear. "I don't know why Evelyn did what she did. I only wanted to see my son. But I know Jonathan. He's a good man, raised to respect others. Those lies about him, they're not true." She paused, her eyes shining with quiet strength. "I forgive her, because holding on to anger doesn't heal anything. But I hope she learns from this. The crowd was silent, moved by her grace. Cameras flashed, capturing her words, her dignity a powerful counterpoint to Evelyn's deceit. The evidence, security footage, bank records, and Margaret's heartfelt statement, was undeniable, and the tide of public opinion turned swiftly. Reporters raced to file stories, headlines now reading, "Billionaire clears name, exposes girlfriend's lies." Evelyn's allies, sensing the shift, abandoned her, their silence deafening as Silverton's chatter turned to outrage against her. In her East Side apartment, Evelyn watched the press conference on her phone, her face ashen. "No," she whispered, sinking onto her couch as the footage of her locking the gate played on repeat. Her phone buzzed with notifications, friends unfollowing, clients canceling, her name now synonymous with betrayal. The takedown was complete, a crowd-pleasing moment of justice that would echo across the city, its drama and undeniable proof ensuring it spread like wildfire. Jonathan, Clara, and Victor stepped away from the podium, their bond strengthened by the fight. As they left the room, Jonathan glanced at his mother, who smiled faintly. "You did good, my boy," she said, squeezing his hand. The victory was theirs, but it was Margaret's grace that sealed the story's heart, a moment that would linger in Silverton's collective memory, shared and reshared for its raw, satisfying truth. The Blake mansion glowed under a sunny Silverton morning, its marble floors reflecting golden light streaming through the windows. Jonathan sat with Margaret in the living room, the handmade quilt draped across her lap, its vibrant patches a reminder of her love. The air was warm, a stark contrast to the stormy night that had torn their world apart. Jonathan took his mother's hand, his voice heavy with regret. "Mom, I'm so sorry I let Evelyn into our lives. I should have seen who she was." Margaret's eyes softened, her smile gentle. "You've got a big heart, Jonathan. You trusted her. That's not a fault." She squeezed his hand. "We're here now. That's what matters." Nearby, Clara Holt entered with a tray of tea, her presence quiet but steady. She set the tray down, catching Jonathan's eye. I need to say something," she said, her voice nervous but clear. "Jonathan, I've cared about you for a long time, not just as your assistant. I never said it because I didn't want to overstep, but after everything, I can't keep it in." Jonathan's gaze softened, her loyalty dawning on him. "Clara, you've been my rock. I don't know what I'd do without you." He stepped closer, a tentative smile forming. "Maybe we can figure this out together?" Clara nodded, a hopeful spark in her eyes, their moment a quiet promise of something new. In her East Side apartment, Evelyn sat alone, jobless and shunned, staring at a blank wall. Her phone was silent, her reputation in tatters. "I messed up," she whispered, her reflection in a cracked mirror showing a humbled woman. Redemption felt far off, her mistakes a heavy weight. But the seed of change was planted, though no easy path lay ahead. Months later, Cloverfield's rolling hills bloomed with spring, the small town alive for the opening of the Margaret Blake Community Center. The modest building, funded by Jonathan, stood proudly, its sign gleaming under a gentle rain. Margaret stood at the entrance, her quilt draped over her shoulders, smiling as townsfolk gathered. "This is for you, Cloverfield," she said softly, her voice carrying warmth. "A place to come together." Jonathan, now with Clara by his side as his partner in life and business, spoke next. "This is for my mom, who taught me what strength is." Clara squeezed his hand, her smile proud as they shared their vision for Blake Tech as ethical growth. The crowd cheered, inspired by their unity. Far away, in a new city, Evelyn worked a quiet job, her past a cautionary tale. She glanced at a news article about the center, a pang of regret hitting her. In Cloverfield, as rain fell softly, Margaret cut the ribbon, her smile radiant. The scene, filled with hope and renewal, was a testament to resilience, a story that would inspire and spread, leaving hearts lifted. Thanks for watching. If you find this story interesting, do well to hit the subscription button and turn on the notification bell for our subsequent stories. Don't forget to like and share this video to others. See you in our next story.